So the major groups of fungi are the chytrids, the zygomycetes, the glomeromycetes, the ascomycetes, and the basidiomycetes. So the chytrids are the simplest of the fungi and are microscopic in size. Most are unicellular, but a few form multicellular organisms and hyphae, which have no septa between the cells, so they're coenocytic. They reproduce sexually and asexually. The asexual spores are called zoospores. Chytrids are unique among fungi in the production of a spore with a single posterior whip-blast flagellum. So the chytrids usually live in aquatic environments, although some species live on land. Some species thrive as parasites on plants, insects, or amphibians, whilst others are saprophytic, living on plant or animal organic matter in fresh water, mud, or soil. Some chytrids cause disease in amphibians, such as a number of frog species, resulting in species decline and extinction. So the next group we will discuss is the zygomycetes. So zygomycetes form coenocytic hyphae containing many haploid nuclei. Asexual spores develop in the sporangia at the tips of the hyphae and are usually wind dispersed. Sexual reproduction produces tough, thick-walled zygotes called zygospores that can remain dormant when the environment is too harsh for the growth of the fungus. And if you remember, we covered this on a previous slide. Most of this group are saprophytes, so live on decaying plant and animal matter in the soil. A few are parasites of plants, insects, and other animals, including humans. So opportunistic human pathogens include the mucorales, which cause disease in immunocompromised patients. The fungal invasion of the blood vessels results in the formation of blood clots and surrounding tissue death. The familiar bread mold Rhizopus stolonifer is also an example of a zygomycete. This fungus grows on the surface of moist carbohydrate-rich foods such as breads, fruits, and vegetables. The black tips of this bread mold are the swollen sporangia packed with black spores. When the spores land on a suitable surface, they germinate and produce a new mycelium. Zygomycetes also contribute to human welfare. For example, some are used to make food such as tempeh or curd. Others are employed in the commercial preparation of some anesthetics, birth control agents, industrial alcohols, and the yellow colouring used in margarine and butter substitutes. So the next group is glomeromycetes, and these are highly important because they have a symbiotic relationship with plants, such as herbaceous plants and tropical trees. All glomeromycetes are mycorrhizal fungi that grow in association with the roots of their plant hosts. This relationship is mutualistic because both the plant and the fungus benefits. So the fungus delivers soil nutrients to the plant, and the plant provides carbohydrate to the fungus. Glomeromycetes have coenocytic hyphae and produce large multinucleate spores. Although only asexual reproduction has been documented, there is some evidence that sexual reproduction may occur. The spores germinate when in contact with the roots of a suitable host plant. The glomeromycetes have evolved specialized flat hyphae to penetrate their host plants. So the next group we're going to talk about is the ascomycetes, commonly known as sac fungi, as they form a sac-shaped reproductive structure called an ascus, which contains ascospores. Some ascomycetes are yeasts, whilst others have a life cycle that alternates between yeast and filamentous mold forms. The life cycle of S. cerevisiae, known as brewer's yeast, was described previously. Filamentous ascomycetes form hyphae with septae. Asexual reproduction is common and is associated with the production of asexual spores called conidia. The sexual reproduction involves the formation of asci and ascispores. Many ascomycetes are of commercial importance, such as the yeast used in baking, brewing, and wine fermentations, plus truffles, which are held as gourmet delicacies. Ascomycetes are also involved in the production of antibiotics. However, most of the red, brown, and blue-green molds that cause food spoilage are ascomycetes. as well as the powdery mildews that attack plant leaves. And most fungal pathogens that infect animals, including humans, are ascomycetes. For example, Candida, which causes thrush, and some species which cause skin infections such as athlete's foot, and we'll discuss these later. More seriously, the Aspergillus species can infect humans who are immunocompromised and cause a life-threatening lung illness called aspergillosis. So the next group, basidiomycetes, are commonly called club fungi. Examples include jelly fungi, bird's nest fungi, puffballs, toadstools, and mushrooms. Most are saprophytes that decompose plant debris. Basidiomycetes are named for their characteristic structure, the basidium, which is involved in sexual reproduction. A basidium is produced at the tip of the hyphae and normally is club-shaped. 2 or more basidiospores are produced by the basidium, and basidia, which is plural for basidium, can be held within fruiting bodies called basidiocarps. The basidiocarps can reach 60 centimeters in diameter and have many pores, each lined with basidia that produce basidiospores. Thus, a single fruiting body can produce millions of spores. Like ascomycetes, the hyphae of basidiomycetes are septate, which means they contain septa, the cross walls. So the basidiocarp is shown below in the picture of the mushroom. So it's the part of the mushroom that grows above ground. So microsporidia are unusual fungi. So they are unicellular spore-forming parasites. They are obligate intracellular parasites that infect insects, fish, and humans. And what we mean by an obligate parasite is one that completely depends on the host for survival, so they cannot survive independently of the host. Microsporidia lack important organelles, so unlike other fungi, they lack mitochondria, peroxisomes, and centrioles. They are also unique amongst eukaryotes, as they possess an organelle called the polar tube, which is essential for host invasion. So depending on the species, the spores may be spherical, rod-shaped, or egg or crescent shaped. The spores release the unique polar tubule that pierces the host cell membrane to allow the fungus to gain entry into the cell. Once inside the cell, more spores are produced and eventually take over the host cell. They are particularly problematic for immunocompromised patients. One species can cause symptoms such as diarrhea or pneumonia, whereas another species can cause encephalitis and nephritis, so it can be quite serious. So, as we have mentioned at various points in the lecture, fungi has several beneficial effects, and this slide just summarizes these. As you can see, many drugs are produced from fungi, so different types of antibiotics and also cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins. But obviously, we also need to remember that there are a number of fungal pathogens that exist, and it's important to be able to recognise these infections and ensure they're treated correctly. And as pharmacists, we'll play a big role in this. So there are several dermatophyte infections that you'll come across as a pharmacist, and these are the most common fungal infections of the skin, hair, and nails. So these include athlete's foot, ringworm, which is showed in the photo on the right. The ringworm affects mostly arms or upper body. You can also get ringworm of the scalp, which is more common in children. You can also get fungal nail infections, like the yellow nail shown there. Onychomycosis is the official name for that. Jock itch is another dermatophyte infection. Okay, and this often affects the groin and inner thighs. So these are all infections that you'll see quite commonly in the pharmacy, and several of these can be treated over the counter, but obviously you need to know when to refer to the doctor. But there are several OTC preparations available, things like sprays and creams that can treat some of these conditions. So this slide is just to talk about Candida infection. So that's thrush, which is a very common yeast infection. So Candida is normally harmless unless there is a disruption in the normal flora, which causes the overgrowth of the yeast. Vaginal thrush is very common in women. It produces symptoms such as a white vaginal discharge, described like cottage cheese, itching and irritation around the vagina, soreness and stinging during sex or during urination. Simple vaginal thrush can often be treated with canister preparations in the pharmacy, such as the cream, the pessary, or the capsule. Thrush can also occur in men, though it's less common than in women. It's not actually classed as a sexually transmitted infection. In men, the symptoms include irritation, burning, and redness around the head of the penis, a white discharge like in women, and an unpleasant smell. Candida can also cause oral thrush, which is common in babies and older people with dentures. In addition, adults taking antibiotics over a long time, those on steroid asthma inhalers, and patients taking chemotherapy may also get oral thrush. Symptoms include white patches on the inside of the mouth. So white patches on the inside of the mouth. It's important to note that babies with oral thrush can pass on thrush to their mothers during breastfeeding, so then the mothers can get thrush of the breast. Symptoms of thrush infection in the breast include pain in the breast after breastfeeding, and the nipples may be red and dry or flaky. It's important to note that if either the breastfeeding woman or baby has been diagnosed with thrush, they both need to be treated. So Candida can cause serious infections also. So systemic candidiasis is a serious infection that can affect the blood, heart, brain, or other parts of the body. People who are at increased risk of this are people with a weakened immune system, for example, those with AIDS or on cancer chemotherapy, or intensive care patients. This infection would have to be treated with oral or intravenous antifungals. The mortality rate is very high, so for critically ill people who develop this, the mortality rate is around 50%. So it's important to note that although Candida infections are usually superficial, that Candida can cause serious infections in certain immunocompromised groups. So just to summarise, fungi are an important class of microbes. They can be single cellular or multicellular, microscopic or macroscopic. So they exist as free living or live as parasites in symbiotic relationships. The cell wall is different from bacteria due to the presence of chitin. Their reproduction can be sexual or asexual, and they form spores in many cases. Fungi are commercially important. They play important roles in food, alcohol, and medicines. But it's important to know the other side is that you have pathogenic fungi, which can cause a number of different fungal diseases, and they need to be recognised and treated effectively.